In this video, we are going to look at how we can use trig to determine a missing side of a triangle, specifically a right triangle. So over here, looking at our diagram, remember we've talked about how you have a point that is where you need to imagine yourself standing. So in these type of questions, you want to focus on where you see the acute angle labeled, and that is the angle where we're going to imagine ourselves standing. And this is the location that's going to help us do all of our labels. So going back to our oldest vocabulary word, hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. Where the 15 is, we're going to label that as the adjacent leg. Remember, adjacent means that the leg is attached to the angle. So this leg and the 20-degree angle are connected. So this is the adjacent leg. And then here's where we are. We have to travel all the way through the triangle to get to X. So this is the opposite leg. Now remember, we've been using the silly sentence, some old hippie caught another hippie chipping on acorns. That helps us remember the connections between sine, cosine, tangent, and the parts of the triangle. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse. Tangent, opposite over adjacent. Now looking at our diagram, we are only going to pick one of these to work with. If you take a second to look at the hypotenuse, it's blank. It was not labeled with a variable and it was not labeled with a number. Because the hypotenuse is blank, we are not going to be able to use trig functions that require h for hypotenuse. We are going to be narrowed down to work with the tangent. Opposite we know is x, and adjacent is labeled as 15. So we have the two pieces of information that we need to use tangent. Let's write it out as the tangent of our angle is always figured out by doing opposite over adjacent. So here's the TOA. Tangent. For our angle, we're going to fill in the 20 degrees. Opposite, we're filling in x. Adjacent, we're filling in 15. At this point, you're going to either need to use a trig table or your calculator to figure out what the tangent of 20 is. The tangent of 20 is represented by a decimal. I'm going to take a second to write that down. For this decimal, we're going to represent it with 6 decimal places. I know that seems like a lot, but these values are very close together. So we need to write down 6 places to be able to be accurate. Now, taking a second to look at what you might be working with. Sorry, I should have changed this ahead of time. Those of you who are working with iPhones, let's see if let me pause for a second. So those of you who are working with iPhones, you're going to want to press your calculator key and turn your calculator sideways so that you're going to see this larger calculator. And notice up here it needs to say degrees. If it doesn't show that, go down to this lower left corner and hit this button. It will change it back and forth between degrees and radians. We're going to work in degrees. And what you need to do here is you type the angle measure. So in this case, we had 20 degrees. And then after that, you're going to hit one of the trig buttons right here, sine, cosine, and tangent. In this case, I needed tangent. And the decimal you see, I just took the first 6 digits over here when I wrote it down. In the next video, I'll show another calculator just to maybe get to more of what people are working with. But for now, let's finish this out. We're going to turn this into a cross-multiplying problem. In this direction, we have 1x. And in this direction, we need 15 times that decimal, which comes out to 5.45, and it keeps going. Now, my original directions said round to the nearest tenth. So looking at what I have here, I am actually going to have a final answer of 5.5 inches. This 5 makes me round up so that there's a 5 there. So what we just found out is the opposite leg of this triangle, and it is 5.5 inches.